Okay, I'm going to look today at creating our first app that makes use of the sensors that are on board the device. So one sensor that just about any mobile device has is called the accelerometer. And this sensor measures motion, so it measures moving forward, backward, left, right, up, and down. So we're going to create an app which we will call Show Accelerometer. And what this app will do is demonstrate how we can embed the accelerometer in the program. So first we scroll down, way down, until we get to sensors. Then we grab the accelerometer onto our application. Notice it's kind of hanging out here at the bottom and isn't really visible on the screen. It's what's called an invisible component. It's something that we can access and make use of even though it doesn't appear on the screen in any way. If we want its contents, the values of the sensor, to be visible on the screen, we need to display them somewhere. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put some labels on the app. 1, 2, 3 labels. And each of these labels will be one of the axes of the accelerometer. So it can measure X motion, Y motion, and Z motion. So I'm going to rename the labels accordingly. So I'm going to call this first one the X label. I'm going to call this second one the Y label. And I'm going to call the third one the Z label. So we don't really need any text on them, so delete that text. We'll be putting the text on them in our program. So let's go over to the program and see how that's going to work. So I want the numbers measuring the acceleration to change every time the sensors themselves detect a change. So to that end, I grabbed the when accelerometer 1 changes block. And that makes available to us the X acceleration, the Y acceleration, and the Z acceleration. So my X label will have as its text the X acceleration. My Y label will have as its text the Y acceleration. And my Z label will have as its text the Z acceleration. So now I've got an app that makes use of those sensors. So what I'm going to do is go now to my device, and I'm going to click on my Show Accelerometer app. And what you should see is that as you move it around, you see some numbers changing. If you move it too much, the screen orientation will itself change. So that's something to get used to. But there we have it. And you can see how those numbers change if you move your device around in various ways. And so what it's measuring is how much motion is happening in the target direction. So the top line is your X motion, the middle line is your Y motion, and the bottom line is your Z motion. And so what I encourage you to do is just kind of play around with it a bit, get a feel for how moving your device in different ways has an impact on those numbers. So that's the accelerometer. What I want to show you now is how to do something very similar with the gyroscope. So the gyroscope is a fairly different sensor. Instead of measuring acceleration, so how much you're moving in a particular direction, it instead measures how much you've rotated in the X, Y, or the Z. So let's create a new separate app for that. So I hit my back button to get to my create new app. I'm going to call this Show Gyroscope. Now I will hit create. And I'm going to create something very similar. The main difference being that I'm going to come down to sensors. I'm going to drag on a gyroscope. And now the gyroscope is also an invisible component. that you can make use of. And likewise, I want to have some labels to display its value. So I'm going to drag 3 labels onto my display. And I'm going to go ahead and rename them. So this will be the X label. This will be the Y label. And this will be the Z label. We don't really need any text, because I'll be providing it from my sensor. And then I'm going to set it up in just a very similar way. So I click on my gyroscope and I say, when my gyroscope changes, I want that text to be updated. So my X label will get the X rotation rate. My Y label will get the Y rotation rate. And my Z label will get my Z rotation rate. And so now I've got an app that I can test. And so I'll go back to my device and I'll find Show Gyroscope. And it's now running. And if you mess around with this, you should notice that the numbers are really pretty different than what you saw with the accelerometer. They're measuring how is it turning around as opposed to how is it moving around. So you can rotate it in different ways and get a feel for what the different axes of rotation are. In the aviation community, they talk about pitch, yaw, and roll. We talk about X, Y, and Z. But they're really referring to the same concept. So again, play around with it a bit and get a feel for how those numbers change as you rotate it. Have fun with those sensors, and I'll talk to you again soon.